My name is Kunal Kapoor. I'm Director of Product Management at Pure. My focus is mainly all the cloud products and capabilities we're building here at Pure. I'm joined by two folks in my team, Naveen, who's who's the software architect in Pure. His focus is, again, a lot of the cloud products that we are building. Van works with me in the product management team. He's on the technical marketing side. And again, he covers most of the cloud products too. So from an agenda perspective, again, 3 speakers, 3 sections. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cloud vision, just to give a context of how did we end up, what we did end up with from a product perspective, like why we think, what we've built is really going to be something that's going to resonate with our customers. What are the use cases for the product after giving a little bit of an introduction to the product. And then Naveen will dig deep into the product on the architecture side. Again, why did we kind of end up with the architecture we did, and why we think it's going to be something that our customers will be very excited about. Van is then going to kind of wind it up with talking about the manageability of the product, and what better than not seeing the product in action. So he's going to do a few demos on the product. So before even we jump into the cloud vision, I know a few of you are first-time attendees at Accelerate and probably first-time covering Pure. So I just wanted to give a quick update on Pure. Obviously, I'm not going to read out all the things on this slide, but maybe 4 things I wanted to highlight. First is that we are at about 6,600 customers and counting for Pure. So we've been growing rapidly quarter after quarter, year after year. We've been very proud about that. If you think about revenue-wise, we were the fastest to $1 billion in infrastructure companies, and that's not slowed down our growth. But more importantly, I think when we look at our NPS score, our Net Promoter Score, that being in the top 1% is something we are super proud about. I remember that 2-3 years ago when we had a Net Promoter Score at 83, a lot of people told us that, yeah, that's good because you're at about 1,500, 2,000 customers. It's very hard to sustain at scale. We actually grew our Net Promoter Score as we scaled. So we're super proud about that we've kept to our DNA of simplicity and a great support experience, which has meant that our growth rate is what it is. The other thing is the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We've been a leader in the Magic Quadrant for 5 years in a row. And what I really love about being a leader in the Magic Quadrant is not only the products that we've built, but what we convey to Gartner when we're doing Magic Quadrant is our vision and our roadmap. And you get dinged if you don't execute on your vision, on your roadmap. It just shows, being the leader in the Magic Quadrant, that we've always executed on our roadmap, on our vision. So we've always what we've projected out, what we want to do is what we've delivered on. And probably finally, I'll just say that, from a product launch perspective, as you can see, we've started with our FA series long time ago now, it feels like, and we're just adding to that portfolio. You'll hear about 3 products today that get added to the FlashArray family from a software hardware perspective. So from a cloud vision perspective, the one thing, again, as I said a little bit before, that simplicity is really the core to everything that we do in Pure. And that kind of goes with how it is to install a FlashArray. If you have to install a FlashArray, there is no install guide. There is no user guide. That is the install guide. That's literally on a business card for a customer to get started with Pure Storage FlashArray. And the same thing with FlashBlade, our other product for file and object. Very, very simple to use, very, very simple to deploy, procure, and obviously work with. Even when we added net new features, I'm sure some of you followed our announcements around Active Cluster, which was about 18 months ago. It didn't change. There is still no user guide. It's 3 commands to get started with. I'm sure when you're smiling, you know how easy it is to set up these products. So that's something that was very important to us. And the reason for a lot of customers building out their private clouds and hosted clouds on Pure FlashArray and FlashBlade was because of that, because of the simplicity of the product. So we believe that when we didn't even have a cloud product, we believe that we had already a lot of experience with customers building out their cloud-like products on-prem. So as you can see by the logos on this slide, we have a lot of big customers are building hosted private clouds on FlashArray today. And we believe, again, the simplicity part and even just this, the consistent API models that we've delivered across our product line is kind of the key to that. So when we looked at the cloud, what we tried to understand firstly was that what are we seeing in our install base? Like as our customers are looking to go from their on-prem to the cloud, or even keeping a hybrid environment around, what are they trying to solve from a use cases perspective? What are the capabilities they're looking to provide to their end users? And what we found is that across the stack, there's really this cloud divide, we call it. And if you start from just the application layer itself, the kind of applications that run on-prem today are mainly like VMs, app islands that we see deployed on a flash array as an example. Very different kind of applications get deployed in the cloud. Web scale-like applications are usually what we see in the cloud. When you go up stack and you look at the management layer.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So it's back on the prior slide. What do you attribute to your high penetration of hyperscalers, cloud environments, and that sort of stuff to? I mean, is it most of the other vendors are struggling to hit into these markets successfully, and 30% of your customers are coming from that space. So
yeah, so I think it comes down to really, again, as I said, the simplicity of using our products to operationalize our product in those kind of environments and those use cases. That makes it a lot simpler, because if you're trying to do this at scale and the product is very difficult to kind of work with, that makes it really hard for our customers. So what we've understood from our customers is, to operationalize and put that product into action has been so simple, and to keep on scaling, like, as you keep adding more capacity or more flash arrays or flash blades in your environment, that simplicity stays. So.
Okay.
And then, going back to from an consumption experience, everything on-prem is obviously very, very manual, very CapEx oriented. In the cloud, everything is API driven, everything is OpEx. What we were obviously super interested was in the storage layer, because we are like, okay, that's where we can make the biggest mark and the biggest dent. If you look at the storage stack on-prem, it is all, we have the richest data services, we have the highest levels of availability, resiliency, and durability. A lot of that is missing in the cloud. If you look at native cloud storage, it's very simple and scalable, definitely, but it's missing pretty much all the data services features or any of the resiliency and availability features that our customers have come to really value on-prem. So now when customers are trying to build out, either moving to the cloud or building out a hybrid environment, it becomes super challenging because of this divide that they see between on-prem and the cloud. And I think, as a vendor, we talk a lot about it's going to be a hybrid world. And I know it's a kind of abused term, but I think the good thing about that our customers living in the hybrid world, I think the biggest proof point for that is all of the hyperscalers too. If you look at Microsoft, they announced Azure Stack quite a few years ago. Google with Google Anthos recently, AWS with AWS Outpost. I think it's an admittance by pretty much everyone in the industry that's going to be a hybrid world. There are going to be some applications living on-prem and some applications going to the cloud. So what we, within Pure, challenged ourselves with was, how can we build this very simple and common data services layer that enables this application portability? And what I mean by that is, it should not matter where you build your application, be it on-prem or in the cloud. You should be able to move that application wherever you need to if your application or business demands it. And you should not have a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to make that happen. And we believe the only way to do that is to have a consistent API model, but more importantly, a very consistent storage layer that underpins that from a features perspective, capabilities perspective. So that's kind of the key that we wanted to enable. So last year, at the end of last year, we did our cloud launch. This was at AWS reInvent conference, and we announced 3 pillars there: build your cloud, run anywhere, and protect everywhere. Build your cloud, I talked about a lot of customers building out their hosted and private clouds on us. I'm going to focus our discussion on Run Anywhere, which is our cloud block store product, which is really kind of giving you the ability to run on-prem in the cloud with this consistent storage stack. We spent a lot of time on the Protect Everywhere pillar the last time we were at Field Day with CloudSnap. Again, we can talk a little bit more about that too later. So just to dig into Cloud Block Store and give a product overview to begin with, what Cloud Block Store is attempting to do is really provide a very, very consistent storage experience for our customers that live on-prem in the cloud. So we've taken all of the goodness of the Purity software that kind of enables the flash array today, and we've ported that into AWS. So Cloud Block Store runs in the customer's account in their own VPC. So almost net, think about it like a virtual flash array that a customer is deploying and managing. Again, we've tried to keep that simplicity thing. It's very, very simple to deploy. Van will talk about that later. And very, very simple to manage. And we've made sure that all of the feature sets that our customers have come to value on-prem, be it snapshots, active cluster, all of that is preserved as we take that from on-prem to the cloud. So it's a 100% software appliance. It gets deployed in a cloud-native way through CloudFormation template. So we've tried to make sure that the deployment of the product is very, very cloud-friendly and very, very simple. Again, from a features perspective, parity, like snapshots, replication, active cluster, all of those features are there. The other important thing is storage efficiencies. We believe we have the industry-best data reduction technologies within the flash array, be it our dedupe, our compression. All of that we bring to the cloud. And I think that's important because now when you go into the cloud, you must have, everyone starts off thinking cloud is not that expensive, but as soon as you start getting to a certain scale, cloud starts getting really, really expensive. By having the storage efficiencies that we can deliver from our product, we can really reduce our customers' cloud spend. So that's something we are really attempting to do. We're trying to, and in a nutshell,
Question around the VPC model, using the customer VPC model.
Yeah.
It can be argued that, yes, it's simple from a very small customer perspective.
Yeah.
But scale breaks simplicity, period. You're going to have trade-offs.
Yeah.
At some point within the next 4 hours, it'd be great to hear what happens at scale when you're going into customers who have multiple VPCs and all this complexity. I see some customers liking the idea of consuming block storage as SaaS because they don't have the worry of integrating it into their VPC model. So just at some point, how do you handle complexity at scale with with it being in the VPC, which causes problems?
Yeah, sure. We'll definitely get into details there. And I mean, yes, I mean, there are two kind of thoughts there, right? You can host it and, have it in your own Amazon account in your VPC. But then you start getting into issues around, now the application obviously is running in the customer's VPC. And now you're trying to do VPC to VPC peering and all of the complexities that come with that. So there are advantages to that approach. The approach we went with was a lot of customers are also very paranoid about owning the data and having it within the confines of their own VPC and their account. Now, we're not saying we won't go there, where we would actually have a service that we can host. We felt this would be the logical first step for us. Again, just given what our customers have told us what they want to do. But, we'll definitely talk about as we scale, as you have to scale, how do we kind of enable that? And even from a capacity scaling and even from a scaling of more instances, we'll talk a little bit about that. So just to go back to this quickly, so the storage efficiency piece and data services I talked about, and the consistent API model probably is probably the key thing here, because the consistent API model ensures that if a customer is working on a flash array today, has done any kind of automation or scripting on-prem, it works as is with the Cloud Block Store, because it's the same APIs that we are consuming in the cloud. Even from a commercialization perspective, when we started on this journey, we wanted to make the technology hybrid in nature, having the same software on both sides. But even the commercialization model, we'll talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. We've tried to keep that also very hybrid in nature. We've tried to make it very flexible, a very OpEx-based model, and we have two routes to market that we'll talk a little bit about again later. From a use cases perspective, so we had a long beta that we ran for Cloud Block Store. We launched the beta for it end of last year. We ran the beta for almost 6 months. And the reason we wanted to do that is we went with the hypothesis of some of the use cases that we think are critical for Cloud Block Store, but we wanted them validated by our customers to just see that that's what they want to do from a production standpoint. Disaster recovery right away when we launched the product, our beta program, we felt like disaster recovery was the #1 use case. And it kind of makes sense because a lot of our customers, when they're making that first kind of pivot to the cloud, using cloud as a secondary storage target made a lot of sense. Say if they have a secondary data center and they have all those resources sitting in the secondary storage data center, just waiting for a disaster to happen, that's probably not the best expense that a lot of our customers would want to incur. A lot of customers did not have a DR strategy because it's expensive to have a secondary data center. Cloud allows them to really they can adopt the cloud from a secondary storage need perspective and use it as a DR target. So For this use case, you can just replicate, use our async replication technology, move your data from a flash array on-prem to a cloud block store. Again, the same software running on both sides. So in the case there is a disaster, you can always just fail over, and you can run your application stack right on cloud block store. And obviously, you can replicate that data back. But now, if you've moved your data there, you can absolutely just run some of your applications there. If there is an application that is better suited to run in the cloud, you can absolutely, now that your data is there, spin up your application in the cloud and move there. This use case, we went in with a hypothesis around this test and dev being an important use case, but what we found very quickly was this is going to be one of the use cases that makes a lot of sense for our customers. And the reason being is, in a test and dev use case, what you end up doing is you create a lot of copies of data, and you're obviously serving up those copies of data to many stakeholders within the business, within your organization. And given we have space-efficient snapshots on the Purity software that we've obviously ported now to Cloud Block Store, you can get that in a very cost-effective and performant way. You can have those snapshots, don't consume a lot of space. They're very quick to take those snapshots, mount them as clones to many different hosts, many different stakeholders within your organization. So that probably was one use case. We knew going in that it would be an important one, but we didn't realize how important it is for some of our customers trying to solve for this use case and this problem. So that's definitely another one that we are super excited about. Active Cluster. So Active Cluster was a technology that we introduced about,
So you didn't talk, maybe I missed something, about VMware, because
if you just hold that question, I'm going to have quite a few slides on VMware, because there are a few challenges there, and I want to double click on that one, because 70% of our install base is VMware. So obviously the first question that comes from our VMware customers is, how's it going to work? So I'll hold that question. I'll definitely get into that. Active Cluster is a technology we introduced about 18 months ago. This was firstly introduced for obviously our on-prem flash array. This allows you to run an application in an active-active mode across 2 flash arrays. So if you have 2 flash arrays at sync distances in 2 data centers, basically that application can survive a flash array outage, a complete data center outage, and seamlessly just fail over to the other flash array in the other data center and keep running. So it's a zero RTO, zero RPO solution for those mission critical apps that our customers deploy on-prem. Now, if our customers are looking to deploy mission critical apps in the cloud, there is no solution out there that allows them to do that in this very seamless and simple way. So Active Cluster, the way it works is we'll have 2 Cloud Block Store instances that are deployed in 2 different AZs, and you have your application running across those 2 AZs. If there is an AZ outage or a Cloud Block Store outage, we can absolutely just fail over to the other one.
Is it synchronous?
It is synchronous.
Replication between cloud store?
Between 2 AZs. So it's not across clouds, it's between 2 AZs, 2 different availability zones within a region. So it's going to be our Active Cluster has a limitation of 11 milliseconds is what we support from a round-trip latency perspective. So all of those conditions hold that we have on-prem in the cloud. Now, what Naveen will talk about is we can provide high availability even within an availability zone with the architecture we've built. So this is about high availability across availability zones. He'll talk a lot about how can we provide high availability, which is absolutely unique to our architecture within an availability zone. VMware. So this is definitely a question that has come up a lot in the last few months for us, that how do we work from a VMware environment? We won't dance around that there are challenges there. And the reason, I think the fundamental reason why there is a challenge is that when you replicate your VMFS data store to Cloud Block Store or to anything in the cloud, you don't have ESX hypervisor in the cloud. That's not what AWS's native hypervisor is. So if you try to mount that VMFS data store to EC2 host, that's just not going to work as is. You have to probably do a conversion or something else to make that work. But what we think is a better option is if you convert your VMFS data stores to vVols, and vVols has been a significant push not only from VMware, but also from many storage vendors. We announced vVols support about, again, 15 months ago, we announced our vVols support. We've been super excited about the adoption of vVols. We've seen almost 10-15% of our install base now shifting over to vVols. And the reason is vVols really gives you that data portability aspect to how you manage your VMs. It makes VMs your first-class citizen within the stack and makes things a lot more easier to move around, be it on-prem to the cloud or even move within your data centers or within an on-prem environment.
But that introduced two questions then.
Yes.
One, why don't you work with VMware on
AWS Cloud? Yeah, so
and the other thing
you're
is,
perfect, yeah?
the problem with this kind of architecture is orchestrating the failover, starting the machine in the right sequence.
Right.
So it's not just mounting them on an EC2 host. So do you provide something?
Yes, we do. So, and Van has a demo for that. We'll talk about that. So we realize Orchestrator. We're using a lot of automation, and we're going to provide that to our customers, the ability to do that. Because at the end of the day, if you've converted your VMFS data stores to vVols on-prem, yes, you could replicate that data, but it's the orchestration piece. How do I bring up my VMs? And those are things that we're going to provide a lot of that automation for our customers. Cody Hosteman, who's our VMware specialist, he's going to be blogging a lot about that during the Accelerate conference. Please do reach out to him during the Accelerate conference too and talk to him about it. We are looking to learn too on anything we are missing that you guys as experts can tell us that what customers are trying to do. We are definitely trying to make a lot of automation available to our customers. But to just go back to this, one key thing I wanted to point out here is that when you convert from VMFS to vVols, the good thing is that, for example, if you're running SQL Server as the guest, when you go to vVols, what it ends up being is that now these are just regular NTFS LUNs that you've replicated from your on-prem to the cloud. There is no VMFS, so there is no dependency. So while you're right about the orchestration piece, the good thing is, at least from a data perspective, now these are just NTFS LUNs that you can just mount to SQL Server armies and just get going. Obviously, there is the orchestration of bringing that VM up, and obviously we'll spend a little bit of time looking at the demo for that. But this makes it really, really simple. So we believe this is going to be the best answer for our customers who are looking to move to the cloud. But we also understand there'll be a whole lot of customers who will be like, I'm not going to ditch VMFS. I'm going to stick with that because there's a lot of automation I've built, a lot of ecosystem that is around VMFS that I will value. The only way VMFS works in the cloud is, as you pointed out, VMware AWS Cloud. That's the only. There is another way. You can stand up ESX servers in the cloud. It's not supported by VMware using i3 bare metal instances. I'm not going to explore that a lot during our discussion today, but again, happy to take those questions outside of this presentation, and we can discuss the options there. But VMware AWS Cloud is obviously the preferred route for customers wanting to stay with VMFS. Now, the challenge there is that vSAN is the only supported native storage offering within VMware AWS Cloud. VMware is looking to open that up. They've done that on the NFS side. They're looking to do that on the SAN side. So we're working very closely with VMware on that, as they're looking to open that up to more third-party options. But that's not there yet. So that's not something we can support. So
I want to make sure we understand, because that sounds like a little bit like FUD at the top. You say VMware Cloud does not support external storage offerings other than vSAN. So either some other storage vendors are misrepresenting themselves in their marketing material, or that isn't a correct statement.
Yeah, so I think the key thing there is that you can work with external storage, but the only way to work with external storage is you have to connect up directly into the guest. You cannot be the boot disk. There is no one who can claim that they can be the boot disk within VMC. That's the key thing. Now, when you say that it's supported, yes, we can also say it is supported, but you have to now, almost like an RDM kind of a configuration, you have to directly connect into the guest. So yes, it can work that way, but we know that a lot of our customers will be challenged to work that way, because today on-prem, we as Purity software, we are the boot and the data disk. In this case, we're definitely not the boot disk, and even from a data disk perspective, we're working more like an RDM. So I would say that if customers are saying, or vendors are saying that that's supported, it comes with an asterisk. It comes with a caveat, because there is no magic there. If it's not supported by VMware, there's no way they can get around that. But again, as I said, VMware is very interested in opening that up, opening that support up.
That would be like a raw device.
It's kind of a raw device mapping just directly into the guest.
And that could be Cloud Block Store or on-prem Pure access via VPC or something like that?
You can, I mean, technically, yes, you can, but again, the latency of that could be a little bit challenging unless you're using direct connect to be able to connect to that.
Yeah.
But probably if you're going that route, it's better to use Cloud Block Store instead of probably using this. But absolutely can. Like, I mean, when I was showing even active cluster, in theory, you can do active cluster 1 array in a hosted environment, direct connect into Cloud Block Store.
Right.
Absolutely can work that. My only thing is then your application is spanning on-prem and the cloud. And
how many VMs do you figure out there use raw access to block store?
not too much. And that's why I said it's a huge challenge. So today, if you look at even our install base, it's very, very small percentage of customers using raw device mapping on-prem. So that's why we feel like this is going to be a challenging solution to work with. vVols is definitely the better route because it makes, one, you're kind of taking a step forward because of all the features and all the functionality VMware has brought in for vVols and makes it a lot simpler. And then obviously the portability that comes with vVols. So I think the better route is vVols, in my opinion. When VMC opens it up to have more third-party native integration, that's when it becomes really a lot of choices for customers.
So vVols has multiple protection level capabilities, storage policy things. Do you support that functionality?
Absolutely.
At Pure?
Yeah. So our vVols...
RAID 1 versus RAID 5, RAID 6 kind of things?
So on the RAID part, I'm not sure. I can check into that unless one of us knows.
There's lots of policies to choose from, but in terms of RAID, we only offer one RAID type, so you wouldn't be able to change that.
Yeah.
But that's just the nature of our array, right?
Yeah. But we do have, obviously our support on-prem today for vVols. We support all of those different storage policies around replication snapshots.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, always 2 questions on this. And the first one is, when do you plan to support at least Microsoft Azure? Because it's the second cloud, and then Google, if you have any requests for Google, I don't know.
Yeah.
They are less, enterprise-ish than the other 2,
yeah,
maybe. And the other one is some of your competitors work very closely with the cloud providers to provide, a service that is limited compared to the full functionality of the array that you can have on premises, but actually it's good enough for developers because it's, you can provision and manage everything from the cloud console or the cloud APIs.
Yeah.
So it's, is it part of your strategy, or will you stay on the appliance model only, virtual appliance model only?
So I'll answer the first question first. So yes, definitely we do have a roadmap to support Azure. Azure is something that we are planning for 2020. So we've already started work internally on building out Cloud Block Store, the product we're talking about today from an AWS perspective. We are doing that for Azure. GCP probably will be a little bit further out than Azure. Azure is our kind of our next target. Now let me understand the second question. I'm not sure I understood it. So you're talking about providing like a virtual like appliance on-prem, like a software-defined appliance on-prem?
I'm talking about providing, so some cloud vendors, like Microsoft and I think about Microsoft now.
Yeah.
So
are you talking Azure stack?
They have deals with other major players in the storage market to provide a subset of functionality of the virtual appliance directly.
Volume as a service, basically.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So that
I didn't want to mention.
No, I understand.
Yeah, no. So I mean, that's something. As I said, we've gone the route we've gone from a offering perspective, but volume as a service or storage as a service is absolutely something we are looking at. I don't have any timelines yet for that one. We're still kind of evaluating and seeing, how much of that is really needed by customers, what's the functionality and all of those aspects of it. But yeah, that's also something we are absolutely exploring too.
And just one piece, I think the key theme that we're trying to hit on is consistency of experience. So that's really where we're starting out. So just like you said, I think we're really trying to say we want all of the capabilities of our on-premises arrays in the clouds. And so that's the story we're setting. Does that make sense?
So with this consistency of experience, can you, or will you get to the point where we're talking about cost model as it forms to, you're taking frankly, a legacy approach to storage in the cloud. So anytime I take a legacy approach to what I do in the data center, which works perfectly fine in the data center, and apply it to cloud, it works, but it works at a cost. And that cost is normally those workloads that the appliance is running on or my applications are running on are meant to be elastic and ephemeral, and this isn't ephemeral, what cost am I paying to getting this consistency in operations?
Yeah, and I would have loved to spend a whole session almost on commercialization and like what it means, because that is an important topic. How customers are going to be able to basically use Cloud Block Store is, think about it like there are two parts to a customer's bill. There is the part of the entitlement to use the Purity software. So we are going to be using Pure Storage as a service, our leasing OpEx-like model that we provide on-prem. We're going to extend that to the cloud. So it's going to be like a unified subscription or a hybrid subscription that our customers can sign up for, or even a standalone subscription. So there's that part. The second part is the AWS resources that Cloud Block Store consumes. So combination of EC2 instances, Instance Store, EBS, S3, you'll see that in our architecture. What we can do there is, because of, again, our storage efficiencies, we can significantly reduce that piece of it. So now if you look at your consuming, as in comparison on EBS storage, it doesn't even support thin provisioning. So if you are trying to use 100 terabytes, you're going to put some kind of headroom there, just because you don't want to have obviously just exactly what you need. In our case, you can over provision as much as you want, it doesn't matter. And then on the back end, we can reduce your data. Our average data reduction rate is somewhere in the 4 or 5:1. We can significantly reduce that spend. So we believe we can provide a very cost-effective or very cost-competitive solution to options like GP2 and IO1, which are the SSD all-flash offerings within a native AWS, at a very performant and with a data-rich feature set. So, cost is, as I said, commercialization a big topic. We have TCO tools. When we made this product available this week, we have that available. I'd encourage you to spend some time looking at that and giving us feedback that, what do you think from all this. But I do want to say that, our version 1 of the product was really about, as Naveen said, it was about providing that consistent and very data-rich and feature parity in the cloud. Cost was definitely a big aspect of it, but really we wanted to provide a very highly available, durable, and feature-rich solution. Cost is something, we will absolutely look to keep evolving and tweaking as we move forward in later versions of this product.
So a couple of questions, follow-up questions to that.
Yeah.
First one is from a operational consistency. One of the barriers that people I talk to and clients is that operating VMs in the cloud not equal to operating VMs on premises. I can on premises take my 100 terabyte VMFS and expand it to 110 terabytes. Mm-hmm. That's not quite so simple in AWS. So from operationally, what is that experience like when I need to expand? When I start out with 100 terabytes of EBS attached to an instance, and now I need to go to 150 terabytes of EBS. What is that experience like?
Yeah. So, and I think that's the thing, I'll hold that question for when we talk about the architecture of the product, that we are not built on EBS. We are built with a very different kind of an architecture stack, and I think, Naveen, you will tackle that in your part of the presentation. So, if you hold that, we'll definitely talk about capacity upgrades, or even if you want to upgrade instances, to get to a newer type of instance, we will talk a lot about those upgrades. So if that doesn't answer your question, happy to kind of come back to it.
But there's the other side of that, which I think we can quickly address here, which is the host's perspective, right? So from the application perspective, it's a SCSI volume. So you can increase the size of the volume from the Cloud Block Store API. You essentially then are presented a larger volume, the host sees it immediately.
Yeah, so once we get into the demo, it's more, or the deeper dive is all about the conversation around what does that experience look like. And then two, what I'm missing in the overall picture is how does this get me to cloud? Because this isn't an operating model I want to sustain for the next 5-6 years. This is a stepping point. And what I would love to hear in the vision is what is the stepping point? This is great for I need to lift and shift my data center into the cloud, but this isn't cloud native. This is something in between. So I would love to hear from a, arc of how do I help move customers to the cloud? What is the Pure, how does my relationship continue with Pure after I've migrated my applications to cloud native architectures?
I'll be making some hypotheses there.
Yeah. We'll talk. Yeah, we'll definitely spend time on that.
Yeah, because just to
Yep.
echo what you were saying there, and just some of the bits that I'm a little confused with.
Yep.
Echoes what Keith was saying. It's like I don't buy Pure to save money. Pure Storage has never been about efficiency. This is about performance and all the high value stuff that I want to get out of things.
Yep.
And a lot of the cloud way of doing things, like as you were saying, Keith, like I don't want consistency of experience, because that means that I'm still going to be running COBOL on mainframe. I don't go to cloud because I want to be consistent. I want to change things. I want to do it in a different way. So the dev test workload that you highlighted, those kind of examples of yes, you can have consistency, but it means you can do these new things really well in cloud in ways that actually aren't great with the cloud native experience, as you kind of highlight with AWS. So if you could show some of that kind of value use case, that yes, I can have consistency, which I'm enterprise and I want to run things at scale, and that helps me, but I don't want to keep running the old
same
way
way
of doing things. I want to do the new thing.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of our customers, even who are like VMware customers, as I pointed out, when they're going to the cloud, they're absolutely exploring wanting to do it a different way, where they want to use native EC2 instances to be able to do it differently and when they're consuming in the cloud. And again, as I mentioned, vWAS allows them to do that, to do it in a different way. But those are things that we are kind of learning from our customers too. Like what's the value that they're trying to derive.
And as you mentioned, the hybrid is a thing. Like for a long time, it was like no, you have to be either. You have to go all cloud.
One or the other.
Yeah, that was insane. And everyone's kind of realized no, we're not. So again, if you can show how customers can use this to have the old way of doing things and also the new way of doing things, if there's ways in which you support doing both and choosing the right way for the right workload, instead of forcing everything to say, no, there is only
one way or the other,
You have to put everything on this, and we need to own your entire stack in order for this to be useful and functional, because no enterprise is going to choose entirely you. I buy one company and now I've got two ways of doing things.
Right. Yeah, no, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the architecture and talk about a little bit. One use case I did want to talk about, maybe that will kind of talk to the, what you were talking about, value perspective. When we were at Field Day last time, we talked about this feature called Cloud Snap, which is basically what it does is gives you the ability to take snapshots on the flash array, but instead of those snapshots living on the flash array itself, we can offload those snapshots through the flash array software into different targets. So be it on-prem, we can offload it to NFS targets, or in the cloud, we can offload it to S3 or even Azure Blob, which is what we are again announcing this week, the support for Azure Blob. This snapshot is a self-describing snapshot. So it's got data and metadata embedded in it. So it kind of becomes its own standalone piece. So when it is offloaded to the cloud, what our customers can now do is that you can take that snapshot and you can recover that not only to the flash array you offloaded it from, to any flash array in your environment, be it on-prem. So because it's self-describing, super easy to kind of hydrate and recover. What is Cloud Block Store is really another virtual flash array. So you can now take those, I know you were getting to that. So what you can do is you've offloaded all of those snapshots into AWS S3. You can absolutely, if there is a need, you can now recover those snapshots if there's an outage of that flash array on-prem, or you just want to spin up test and dev environments. You want to do it for DR? Absolutely, you can do that. You can take those cloud snaps and you can just hydrate that into Cloud Block Store. So, you're right. The value piece is important. Like, how can I do things very differently? Why this is so different and going to be a lot of value for our customers, this Cloud Block Store is not going to be always on then, because there is a cost to keep Cloud Block Store on. You can have all of your snapshots parked into AWS S3, and if there is a need for a test and dev environment you want to spin up, or there is a DR event and you want to spin up, there is going to be some RTO challenges depending on how big your data set is, because it will take some time to recover that data. But this is an option for our customers. So for them to think differently and to kind of do things in a very different operational way, we can enable that with Cloud Block Store and Cloud Snap. So we are looking at combining a lot of the different capabilities we've built over the last year and a half to see how we can provide a much more end-to-end value use case for our customers. And this is probably one of the use cases that a lot of customers have kind of,
Is
asked
Cloud
us about.
Snap supported also on the Cloud Block Store? I mean,
yes, it is.
for the big-
So yeah, you can.
Can you save money using?
Yes, we can. So absolutely. No, thanks for bringing that up. So you can, with Cloud Block Store, you can take Cloud Snaps from Cloud Block Store and offload it to S3. So you can absolutely do that. So this is Cloud Snap from a flash array on-prem to, AWS S3 recovery. You can, within Cloud Block Store instances, you can take snapshots.
So, but you're
Absolutely.
moving fairly sizable amounts of data. It's no longer just a Delta file or anything like that. It's a complete self-describing
Yes.
solution there. So it's terabytes of data moving effectively.
So the way we do our transfer of those snapshots, the first snapshot's a full snapshot. Every snapshot after that is compressed and incremental. Now, when you're trying to recover, and that's why I said if your data set is very large and you're trying to spin up doing it for DR, yeah, it could be an RTO challenge. But again, something that our customers can kind of work through. But the efficiencies of sending those snapshots, absolutely, that's kind of built into the technology.
I'm sorry, you said after the first initial snapshot.
Everything is incremental. Every snapshot is incremental and it's compressed. So we make sure that we're being very efficient on how much pipe we're using going into the cloud, and obviously the amount of data we're sending, and even the restore. So when we're trying to do a restore, if you're trying to do a restore back to the same flash array on-prem, obviously there's egress cost. The way we can save you on that is that we will only fetch the blocks that flash array doesn't have. So even the restores are incremental in nature. So we make it very efficient going in and coming back out, and obviously in the cloud.
Can you write these snaps to multiple regions? I think of our recent US East debacle where people lost data. That makes me feel I want to write my data to more than one location because I don't trust Amazon at this point.
Yeah.
Is the kind of consensus.
Yeah. So that's not something that it's supported today, but we are absolutely looking to have multiple targets. For the same flash array can offload to different AZs, different regions within AWS. We are absolutely looking to support that. We don't have that support today, but looking to extend that because that's a lot of questions have come to us. Some customers have also wanted to do both clouds because we, as I said showed in the earlier slide, we also support Azure Blob now.
Yeah, I was actually.
So you can do multi-cloud protection.
I was wondering a grandfather, father, son of write snap to NFS initially, then dump my stuff over to Azure for the second year,
yeah.
and then send over to Glacier for the third or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the two probably the highest requested features from us is cascading. Like, can I put my latest snapshots on the flash array, my tier 2 on a flash blade for quick recovery, and my third one would be in the cloud, and possibly even in 2 clouds. So those are absolutely things we're looking at, multiple targets as well as cascading. And I separate those 2 use cases out because it can be very different of how customers consume that. But no, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Just to clarify.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, just to clarify, the replica target needs to be a flash array, a pure array of some kind for the metadata.
For the async, when you're doing async replication, yes, they both have to be. Here, this can be offloaded to any NFS target, if NFS 4 compliant target, AWS S3, but it's all in a pure proprietary format. So you can't just mount that snapshot and just use it. You have to bring it back to a flash array, be it on-prem or to Cloud Block Store.
So around the incremental part of so I've done my first replica, which goes as a single S3 object, multiple objects?
Multiple
objects, okay. Yeah. So then there are additional objects.
Exactly.
The reassembly of those objects, because they're self-describing,
yes.
so they understand.
Yeah,
right.
That's the thing. And that's why that's the important thing. It's in pure proprietary format. Only a flash array can recognize it, be it either an on-prem flash array, the Purity software recognizes it, and Cloud Block Store.
But from the recovery process itself, when I lose the metadata, the metadata is part of the object. Part of the object. So when I point my pure array to it, it'll know how to ingest those objects.
Exactly. Because each object is self-described.
I'm just trying to think. So if I delete one object from the middle of the replica set, how does it know?
You can't.
Is there a master metadata server or something that knows where all the objects are, or
you cannot go in and delete any object. At least we won't.
You shouldn't. So if one of them gets lost, it's like I'm an old tape guy, so TSM incremental forever. You lose one incremental in the middle, and the entire thing's hosed, or you lose your metadata server.
This means that you don't trust AWS. Or maybe you don't trust your people.
Mistakes happen.
It could be an availability.
I'm an old storage guy.
So let's say that there's
other vendors
there's a
snapshots.
Yeah.
Let's say there's a outage, and for some period of time, that object isn't available. One object in the middle isn't available. It will come back online eventually.
Nothing's
but,
available.
Yeah.
So
This is probably a bit deep in the weeds anyway. I'm just wondering,
But it's a good question.
is it a doubly linked list inside the object metadata
Tree.
that points to the other objects? Or
It's essentially a tree.
okay, cool.
I mean, but yeah, so you do need all the objects. There are, I mean, the snapshots are self-describing, so for the metadata for a particular snapshot, you need those objects. But in the case of let's say, accidental deletion of an object or something, we'd recommend something like S3 object versioning, right? So
Okay.
In Cloud Block Store, we'll talk about that. It uses that natively. So we've basically protect against things that we don't expect to happen, but if they do.
Oh, they're going to. Always.
they're it's
Computers are
the object, the VPC that object was in, we forgot to pay the bill.
Probably a good point of transition. Yeah.
Is CloudSnap included in the Purity
Yes.
license?
So all of our software in the Purity is all included. So CloudSnap is literally like, it's supported as of the code level 5.2. So if a customer upgrades to 5.2, they have CloudSnap. They can start using. CloudSnap Azure is supported in the latest release, which is 5.3, which is just coming out in Accelerate, the conference. Okay.
And is
Cool.
the data
So-
on the cloud, Snap, encrypted?
Yes. So we only use client-side encryption. So you have to have encryption turned on the bucket, and only if encryption is turned on will the CloudSnap will offload. So we make sure that even when we're sending data across the wire, it has to be sent encrypted. That is HTTPS. We are using that as SSH. And when it lands there, the bucket has to be encrypted. So you have to turn on encryption on the bucket. So the customer creates the bucket, needs to turn on encryption. If CloudSnap sees that encryption is on, it's going to offload those snapshots.